Thanks, Paul. I'm conscious, Paul, that we've probably run over a bit, and I will try and be as
no worries at all, Jerry. We're
concise
keen.
as
Don't worry
possible.
at all. We're very keen to hear from you. Really,
Could do
we
with
really
a cup
are.
of coffee. Yeah. I suppose my interest in the whole AI debate stems from my role within a business that I founded about 35 years ago, and our main focus always was on, delivery on time, on program, efficiency, and I spent a lot of time, organizing the structure, getting the right structures in place, understanding people, and team building. And I think we've talked today about Mars and space. I think we need to talk a little bit about Earth and the problems we have here, generally in the construction industry. And a lot of it is around delivery. And when I say delivery, it's a $10 trillion industry, and we are, as architects, are a key component of it. It's failing consistently to grow. Now, there we go. It's failing to address the needs of humanity. Growth is less than 1% per annum. Aging workforce, need for new methodologies, lack of investment in technology. 7% of construction companies, 7% have adopted fully in all their workflows BIM technology. Only 7%. And something like 30% talk about, well, we've done a little bit. We've gone some way down the road. Meanwhile, we need to build 13,000 buildings a day to meet the demand by 2050, right? So that equates to about 100,000 homes a day globally. So just think about the scale of challenge we have on Earth before we begin to talk about Mars. Meanwhile, we talk about people and skill sets. 41% of the current workforce in construction, including architects, will be retired within 5 years. How are we going to do this? Well, obviously, AI is a huge part. And we talk about, and we've analyzed and looked at it because we are very focused on delivery and new methodologies. What will the new workforce look like? And I think it's all about, beg your pardon, it's all about the connectivity between the different work streams. So at the top, you've got manufacturing. You've got an integrated design team on the left. You've got supply chain logistics. You've got site at the bottom. But in the middle, you have what we call the data analytics team. This is something we've developed within our own business, and we're using already on some projects. And the idea is that you have, within a project, thank you, a single source of truth in the center. We're used to this combative way of working where the project manager may have his own systems for reporting to a client, the architect is doing something else, we've got site reports. How do we, using technology, create a single source of knowledge that unifies the entire delivery process? My belief is that AI and generative design, and particularly the digital twin, which we've been using now extensively, can be the vehicle that unites the entire delivery model. And this is something in the center, what we're talking about. In our business, it's called Project Aurora. It's the single source. It draws in all the information from all sub-consultants, from client bodies, and it will produce in real-time reporting on a project. So, for example, if an architect is working remotely and we have scripted a particular program which involves elements, if they start drifting away and it has an impact on cost or program, he'll get an orange flag saying, hold on a second. The idea is that we remove this difficult relationship within the industry, the combative nature of it, and we try and streamline processes. And we try and avoid all this reworking. You know, projects are over budget, they got to be reworked. All of this can be managed with intelligent algorithms, and practices, I believe, will have to develop their own to suit their clients and their projects. And, you know, in terms of the emergent, you know, technologies, we've talked about BIM. BIM is a cornerstone, clearly. AR, VR we use for communication. Clients can go into our models, they look around, they can comment within the model. And we envision in time, as with medical devices, that people will be able to think. And that thinking will in turn trigger an activity or a commentary. Just as people, you know, medically, who are paralyzed, they think about something and a robotic arm can make it happen. So I think it's all going to become the entire digital model, the twin, is going to be a key component. We've developed our own generative algorithms. You put in your design goals, your constraints, and you let the computer generate multiple options. I mean, this is how it works for us. So if we look here, this should be an idea. When we look at options, you know, for example, we go in, we identify a site, we can start optioneering, and we can develop multiple options. And we're getting reporting coming in bottom and at the side. Different options, different price points, net to gross ratios, all of this is available once you've built in the programs into the digital twin. Now, this is a very generic image, but we're doing this on live projects at the moment, and one in particular is the subject of an NDA. Optioneering comes from this, and then we comment on it, it begins to learn, and we can analyze solar, wind, daylight, sunlight. We get immediate reportage. And I guess it doesn't replace anything, but it certainly stimulates discussion, debate, and accelerates processes. We then ask Project Aurora, that's not going to run that again. I just want to move on to something here. So, working with one particular client, we talked about the importance of industrialized design. We developed, in this particular project, 48 modular prototypes, which in turn fed into 26 apartment types, which in turn we adapted into 7 block typologies. And then for diversity, we developed 7 facade typologies. All in turn became something like 60 buildings and 10,000 apartments that had to be designed and delivered in a fast-track methodology. So with this, with this kind of core data, you can build it in to your system, and it in turn then will generate, as I showed earlier, options about format, structure. So in this particular project, we delivered it on time, and it was delivered about 20% under budget recently in Saudi Arabia. And it's now moving on site with probably 4 different modular subcontractors, because again, capacity is an issue. Which brings me to a point that the methodologies that contractors use, it's not really about using modular contractors, it's about getting contractors to think differently about how they build and to begin to adopt some of the manufacturing processes that are used, which will accelerate the capability and improve the price point for projects. That's not to say that, you know, you're in a computer, you're working in a digital model. The architect, as the sketcher, the enhancer, the visualizer, has to feed in imagery, ideas, which again in turn inform the process. So this idea of the human's intuition is critical, because as somebody mentioned, it's, that sensory ability of a human being is essential to set the mood, the theme, etc. And it feeds in and is an overlay, constant overlay on AI, so that it's constantly directing, curating the project, leading ultimately to, in this case, a varied residential district that is being built at great speed and at a very economic price point. Climate change, people talk about quite a bit, and it's a huge challenge for architects. Projects need to be resilient, low carbon, sustainable. We have to now begin to dial in future climate conditions. We need to think about what will happen in the future in the way we design buildings. So we need to become very much more aware and have new skill sets. Buildings have to be adaptable for latering uses, extending life cycle. A hotel has to be capable of being converted and adapted into residential, vice versa. Architects will have to become familiar with industrialized design and construction methodologies. We are already developing and designing ultra-efficient envelopes and systems. We need to develop a substantive knowledge of alternative building materials, something we're doing in Poland, where we're working with a material derived from basalt. And if you can think of a panel that satisfies, a single panel for, again, residential, that satisfies acoustic, energy, heating, insulation, all in one panel, all in one material. These polymers, touched on earlier, will soon become available in the marketplace. And the engineering, particularly of housing, is going to become very similar to car manufacturing. There's no doubt. We've heard about products like potato chipboard, mushroom insulation. All of this is coming. And then architects have to embrace rigorous sustainability criteria in every design decision. We will be collaborating with scientists, ecologists, and as I said earlier, probably psychologists and physiologists. There's a big shift in the expectation. When we talk about what architects do, we're not just creators of buildings, but we're also being expected to become problem solvers of global challenges. Climate change has elevated the architect's mission, and over the next 20 years, architects will be central figures in achieving sustainability goals. We will need to have a fulsome knowledge of environmental science and create buildings that generate more energy than they use. And what are the skills? We talked about the skills that architects need. And really, when you come to, it's really people. It's all back to people. Technical prowess alone is not enough. Neither is design talent in isolation. The architect of the future will need to be a polymath, comfortable with advanced digital tools, fluent in sustainability, and armed with a strong creative and strategic thinking. We will need to have a great fluidity in our skill sets and a great willingness and desire to continue to learn. While it is a digital-first discipline, we will have to be able to use complex software. We'll have to develop our own basic coding, our algorithmic thinking based on the needs of projects. We've talked about the need for a grounding in environmental design. And architects will be called upon to solve not only design problems, but broader strategic ones. How to design for social equity, how to adapt a business's workplace post-pandemic, how to integrate new mobility into city design. All of these things, we will be thinking beyond form. We'll be thinking about processes, systems, and their consequences. And as we touched on, Educational programs are now focusing on how people think, not just what they do, encouraging creativity and originality remain at the core. But the optioneering provided by AI is something that will be enormous. The day of most architects being this low genius in a studio are probably going. Projects will involve everybody from policymakers, contractors. It's a one activity with multiple disciplines. The trend effectively will have to broaden an architect's education in the realm of sociology and psychology. Advanced critical thinking and problem solving. We cannot lose sight of the high-level design thinking. Future architects will be called upon to not only design problems, but also to deal with broader issues. Adaptability. We need to be adaptable, we need to be continuously learning, and we need to be able to change rapidly. Successful architects will wear many hats, part technologist, part environmental scientist, part sociologist. They'll leverage a broad set of skills to remain relevant. And that's what will be the critical piece. The work environments have changed. The way architects work is changing. And we'll see further significant shifts in office culture. Key changes will include the normalization of hybrid working, globally distributed project teams, and new forms of collaboration. These changes in work environment mean the culture of architecture firms is evolving with more focus on deliverables and outcomes. It will empower younger architects and probably reduce a significant layer of middle management within design firms. Mentorship, as we touched on, will be key, and the advancement of a creative culture. And as I said, it means an architect in a small town can contribute to landmark projects. Interpreting human needs and creatively responding to them is something easily automated. Research at Oxford University tells us that there is a very low probability of architects being replaced as a profession, under 2% compared to other professions. Yes, there'll be automation, and a lot of that will be taken over by AI. But it will continue to be a synthesis of art, engineering, intuition, and a deep understanding of social context is needed where human insight is paramount. There's also a philosophical shift in design practice, more openness to outcomes that are co-created with algorithms. This is the algorithm will be your partner. We touched on that. So the shift in society is that the architect's role can and will expand. And in fact, the architect can become what they once were, the builder, the architect, builder, designer. If we manage to stay in control of these processes that are going to be AI-driven, we need to be in the middle of this, managing it. AI, yes, it is a co-designer, but the architect will be the final editor and he will provide the final cuts. That's important. Architects' day-to-day work will change and will evolve. In summary, we can expect the architect's job to become more fluid. An architect might in 1 week be designing a building, in the next advising a city council, running a public workshop, or maybe tweaking an AI algorithm. We're going to have to be extremely adaptable. And in terms of education, with these profound changes in technology, architecture and licensure are evolving. The next 5 years will show significant reforms in how architects are trained and certified. As we touched on, schools are starting to rethink their curricula to produce graduates who are ready for contemporary challenges. This means adding or strengthening courses in sustainability, digital technology, and most importantly, collaborative practice. Learning to work together, teamwork, it's key. And there is a push to integrate topics like climate science and building performance simulation, computational design, into the core curriculum rather than them being optional. So the focus on skills and continuous learning is key. The pathway to becoming an architect will also change. Traditionally, it's required a professional degree, a multi-year internship, and a series of exams. The process has been criticised for being lengthy and restrictive. In the coming years, we expect more flexible pathways, as we discussed. Apprenticeship routes will be reintroduced. In summary, the educational and licensure framework is responding to the demands of the future. We will see more adaptable, tech-infused and sustainability-focused education and faster, more accessible routes to becoming an architect. This will integrate sustainability into curricula and will imbue interdisciplinary collaboration. Professional organisations, schools and regulators are working together so that tomorrow's architects are not only well versed in design but also in science, technology and societal context. In conclusion, the essence of an architect's role to shape the spaces we inhabit remains critical. If architects embrace these changes, they will reaffirm their relevance and leadership in building a better environment. Architects can lead the charge, as I said, with technology, with developing knowledge around new methods of construction and deliverability, and creating sustainable, vibrant, and adaptable communities. The coming decades promise to be an exciting time of innovation and definition, as we've discussed. A profession has always combined art, science, and social purpose. With agility and vision, architects will continue to turn challenges into design opportunities, ensuring that they are not only exist in 2050 and beyond, but that we need to thrive as pivotal players in addressing the needs of society. That's really all I really wanted to say today, but I think for our practice and for my own personal interest really is always comes back to the application of the technology, the development of people who can address the needs and use the technology. I think we're really on the cusp of a complete paradigm shift in the way architects work and relate with their clients. And that's really all I would like to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Jerry. Thank you. Thank you.